wormholes, particle physics, extra dimensions. Are the wonders of so-called reality really what they appear to be? Or do we exist in an elaborate hologram? Is our universe the result of random activity or the result of intelligent design? If a creator was involved, can we discover him through our perception of divine order? This is Into the Multiverse with Josh Peck.
Welcome back into the multiverse. So last week we were talking about extra dimensional Earth stuff. We're going to pick up right where we left off. So I understand why people believe the firmament interpretation of, you know, the dome and the whole deal. Like I get all that. I personally don't agree. There's a couple reasons why. So first though, I want to talk about this extra dimensional waters before we get to the firmament, because I think this is really cool.
It's really awesome.
There actually might have been an extra dimensional source for most, if not all, of the water on Earth. This is really cool. I mean, of course, everything has an extra dimensional source because it's all from God.
Yes.
But so Genesis 1:7 says, "And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so." So we learned that God made something called a firmament. You know, that's the information we have so far. And the purpose of this firmament was to divide waters above and below. So we get another clue in Genesis 1:8, which says, "And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day." And then Genesis 1:20 says, "And God said, Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven." And we also get Genesis 1:16 through 17, which says, "And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. And he made stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." So we learned three things. We learned first that the firmament was called heaven. Second, the firmament is open and birds can fly in it. Not under it, not above it, in it. And third, that the sun, moon, and stars are also in the firmament. So the first verse might make us think that the firmament is something that's purely spiritual because, you know, it's called heaven. But the second and third verses negate that theory. The second verse might lead us to believe that the firmament is just the air above the earth, you know, that that's all it is. Maybe even the upper atmosphere. But the third verse negates that too, because we have the sun and the moon, you know. So that now the third verse might make us think that the firmament is outer space, you know. But the second verse negates that. So what do we do with all this? Now, and this is partly why I get why some people say, well, then there just isn't any outer space and everything's under a dome thing, even though it says in and not under, you know. But I understand the arguments for that. But and then there's also something called the canopy theory, which the canopy. Yeah, that's right.
Kent Hovind.
Kent Hovind.
Yeah.
Yeah, he talked about how a long time ago there might have been like an ice sheet or water or something surrounding the globe, and then when the flood happened, it collapsed, and that's where all the water came from.
Yeah.
I don't believe that personally.
It's an interesting theory.
It's interesting. But I think it, like all of these, and that's the thing too. That theory, like all these theories, and even ours, has problems. You know, even our theory here is going to have some problems. But Genesis 1:20 tells us that birds fly above the earth, yet in the open firmament of heaven. So if the firmament is something solid or liquid, you know, encompassing the entire earth, birds wouldn't be able to fly in it.
Right.
You know, they could fly under it, but that's not what it says. Also, the idea of something solid or liquid encompassing the earth wouldn't be described as open, likely, you know, not an open thing. If it was something enclosing the earth, it should be described as closed, you know, the complete opposite. So it's something that the birds can fly in. It's something that can contain the sun, moon, stars, and it's something that could be referred to as heaven. So here's what I think. I think the firmament is either a divide between dimensions or it is an extra dimension. Now, people might think, yeah, but birds aren't extra dimensional. But all dimensions are made up of the dimensions underneath it. So if you have the 3 dimensions, the 3 dimensions that we exist in are made of the second dimension and the first dimension, you know, stacked up and lined up. And so the 4th dimension, I would think, would be similar. So imagine, again, the 2-dimensional Earth thing. You know, you got the pillar underneath it. We're moving it around. You know, we're scaring everybody. And
Wait, what?
Flatlanders are scared because they're like, what's going on?
All right, I got you now.
And so you got these Flatlanders around the Earth. And then, see, I should have like cut out a piece of paper or something to kind of make this more visual, but people will just have to
use the thing.
People will have to use their imaginations.
Use a magazine.
It'd be better if it was round, but so okay. So you have Flatlanders that, you know, live on all sides.
Got 4 corners.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason this doesn't work is this is going to complicate our thought exercise later, but it's okay. We can use it for now. So you have a Flatlander here, you know, let's say, existing, living his life, and then he looks. It wouldn't be up; it'd be like out. You know, he looks over past him in the air, and he sees little flatland birds, you know, flying around. To him, they're apart. They're in the air or whatever. But I could look at that and I could say that those birds are existing in my space too. You know, they're existing technically in the 3rd dimension, just one slice of it.
Right.
So you could consider that the open firmament or heaven, or, you know, they're still existing in that space. They're just in a very small section. And the Flatlander too, by the way, like the Flatlander, the entire Earth would be like that. So you could say that, and I think that's what it's getting at, because that's the only thing I can think of where, you know, the birds, the sun, the stars, the moon would all have in common, still be open, and still be called heaven. How does any of that make any sense? You know, I think that's how. And again, it's not that they're in an extra dimension. They are just part of a dimension that makes up a bigger one. Right. Just like our 3-dimensional world makes, you know, likely is a very small section or a small slice of a 4-dimensional reality, you know, so on and so forth.
Makes sense.
So I've been talking a lot. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts on it. Here, I'll put this back with the rest of the magazines there. I think it's all part of a bigger picture. Like we've been talking about. There's stuff we can see. There's stuff we can't see. There's stuff. I feel like how it is in the micro of everything is in the macro. We can't see with our eyes right now, like without a microscope, certain things, like the quarks, or, you know, what molecules and atoms and things are. We can't see those electrons, but there's things we can't see. You know, like atoms and things like that.
You know, we can see them with specialized equipment, but like with our naked eye, you can't.
But not with the naked eye. Not with the naked eye. But they're still part of our existence. We're made up of all these molecules. What we were discussing, we kind of talked about it a little last night, like touching. Can't really touch anything, because it's just the way the molecules react, the positive and negative. The
electrons are pushing against each other because of charge.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right, and because electrons, you know, they're all charged in a way that they repel one another. It's almost like kitchen magnets. So that repulsion is actually what you're feeling.
What you're feeling.
Yeah, which is it's weird. So you can't actually. The only true touch you could ever have is through quantum tunneling. I think. and
that is
we talked about that.
My favorite subjects about quantum physics is the quantum tunneling.
Yeah, mine too.
Awesome. So we can't see it with our naked eye, but it's there. It exists with us. Yeah. Same with those. You know, with the Flatlanders.
Yeah, and what's cool about the whole water thing with this, the extra dimensional waters idea is, it says that the firmament splits the water above from the waters below. And I actually, when you look at the word above can mean beyond.
Yes.
It can mean, and I kind of take it as something beyond, something spiritual,
Yes.
extra dimensional. So let's say you have the flat land earth thing, you know, you have it in your living room, let's say, and you decide that you want to give the Flatlanders some water on their flatland earth, you know. So you could take like an eyedropper full of water and you can put water in there. And now to them, if you're dropping water on the edge of this earth, they're not going to see where the water's coming from. Okay. They'll just, there's just water now. Like they would see it like just come into their existence, you know, into their reality. But what's happening is you have a divide between the second and third dimensions that the Flatlander can't see. There's the firmament there that's essentially dividing the water from the water. You know, it's dividing the source of the water from the actual water that's on the flatland earth. So I think that's something similar. Now imagine this. Imagine if you put it next to a window and you open the window and it's raining.
Yeah.
And all this water is coming gushing into the flatland earth, and they don't know where the water's coming from, but there's a lot more water than there used to be, you know. And depending how the water is falling, to them it could look like that it's coming up out of their earth, well not up, but you know, coming out of their earth, you know, because if you're pouring a bunch of it on the middle of it and it spreads out that way, it could look like it's just coming from all directions, but it's just appearing, you know, they're not seeing the source. Right. That might be what happened with the flood. Right. Now I do believe that likely there used to be a lot of water underneath the earth, and actually I think that's why we have oceans now. Those are the caved in parts. Yes. You know, because it does say that, you know, the fountains broke open from the deep. But there are places where the deep seems like it's something extra dimensional, because this is something where, like, you know, dead things, you know, people that are like fallen angels and demons, or people that have died. You know, it talks about the deep in almost in this, or the abyss. The abyss. It's synonymous with the abyss. So like fallen angels and stuff are there. So it seems like it's something something extra dimensional.
I think so, because there's definitely something extra dimensional to the earth, because there are parts of our earth where we can't find the bottom of the oceans or even the lakes. Lake Superior in Michigan, there are places there where they'll send the cameras down, and once they get past a certain point, the cameras stop working, and they still haven't found the bottom. Right. And also in the Atlantic Ocean, there's a trench there where they try to find the bottom, but it goes too deep and they can't find it. Yeah, so it's very, I think that there's extra dimensions there. I think so too. All right, we will be continuing our conversation when we come back right after this.
The Trump administration is now vowing to crack down and punish deep state saboteurs.
Today, America is being manipulated through a Washington-based shadow government.
This is a war now, the deep state against you and the President of the United States.
The artificial chaos engineered by elites and advanced by enemies of democracy is being propagandized by a devoted media machine to take down President Trump.
I submit to you that the establishment that you talk about, the so-called deep state, exists on both sides, the left and the right, and President Trump is up against both of them.
But this is not the whole story. A much more sinister quest behind the deep state is at work to usher in a final world order.
He's an outsider. He's not them. He's not part of the club. You know, he hasn't been through the initiation rites. He didn't belong to the secret society. He didn't belong to the secret society. The secret society.
They're trying to cheat you out of the future and the future that you want. They're trying to cheat you out of the leadership you want.
Globalists, secret societies, and world power brokers anticipate the insidious arrival of a messianic strongman they call the Gray Champion. Now, for the first time ever, expert on occultism and best-selling author Dr. Thomas Horn joins a senior analyst from the Pentagon and a retired police detective to bring you the shocking truth behind an ancient cabal almost too fantastic to believe.
If these forces are successful, this country will not survive.
They have a plan for your future, but you can know their secret and stop them in their tracks. Get ready, Saboteurs, how secret deep state occultists are manipulating American society toward a final world order.
America is being manipulated by sinister occult forces and a Washington-based shadow government. But now, for the first time ever, expert on occultism and best-selling author Dr. Thomas Horn is joined by senior analyst from the Pentagon, Colonel Bob McGinnis, and retired police detective Carl Gallups to expose these nefarious forces. Skywatch TV is proud to announce the Saboteurs collection. When you order the new books, Saboteurs, Gods and Thrones, and The Deeper State from Skywatch TV, you'll also receive free of charge for a limited time the exclusive oversized hardback collector editions of the classic 2-volume set, The Devils and Evil Spirits of Babylonia, and The Fallen Angels and the Heroes of Mythology. These two timeless masterpieces, finally in print again after 100 years, are the perfect gift for the scholar or Bible student in your life, and hold a retail value of over $60 all by themselves, but are included absolutely free when you purchase the limited time Saboteurs collection. But that's not all. You'll also receive the never-before-aired DVD Off the Record, featuring exclusive interviews with Dr. Thomas Horn, Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, and Detective Carl Gallups, further exposing the dark secrets of globalist elites and how to stop them in their tracks. This content is only available in this exclusive offer and will not be aired anywhere else. Finally, you'll also receive The Shadow Hand, the over 24-hour Steve Quayle and Tom Horn definitive audio series on CD. This audio collection discloses the terrifying truth behind the infamous WikiLeaks dumps, the shadow government, and so much more. This unprecedented special offer sold separately holds a retail value of over $175. Yours now for only $29.99 plus shipping and handling. The holiday gift season is coming, and you won't find this collection anywhere else. So don't delay. Order the Saboteurs collection for somebody you love now at skywatchtvstore.com or call 1-844-750-4985.
Welcome back to Into the Multiverse, so I don't want to waste any time. I want to get right back into it. And this kind of brings other passages like Psalm 104, 3 through 13 into clearer perspective. This is like, so taking everything that we've talked about so far, this is really cool. He lays the beams of his upper chambers in the waters, who makes the clouds his chariot, who walks on the wings of the wind, who makes his angels spirits, his ministers a flame of fire. You who laid the foundations of the earth so that it should not be moved forever. You covered it with the deep as with a garment. The water stood above the mountains. At your rebuke they fled. At the voice of your thunder they hastened away. They went up over the mountains. They went down into the valleys to the place which you founded for them. You have set a boundary that they may not pass over, that they may not return to cover the earth. He sends the springs into the valleys. They flow among the hills. They give drink to every beast of the field. The wild donkeys quench their thirst. By them the birds of the heavens have their home. They sing among the branches. He waters the hills from his upper chambers. The earth is satisfied with the fruit of your works. So that's really cool, taking all this stuff about water and firmament and extra dimensions into account. I think that's really cool because that kind of pieces everything together. Mm-hmm. And that part where it says you laid the foundation so it shouldn't be moved forever. Well, right. Again, you can have the flatland earth and the pillar underneath it. Mm-hmm. That thing is going to be stuck to that pillar, like it's not moving off of that pillar. Right. You know, you're not knocking it down off the pillar or anything. Right. You can move the pillar around. Sure. So I think that's really interesting because there are. You know, there are certain atheists and stuff that say, you know, well, it says that the earth can't be moved, so, you know, but we know it is, so, you know, the Bible's wrong. And it's like, well, that was their interpretation of science back then, you know, so really who cares? You know, we don't expect ancient Israelites to be scientists. Right. Doesn't mean they were stupid. They looked at the world totally different than we do. You know, they didn't have a materialistic, scientific, 21st century American, Western world, you know, point of view. But even if somebody doesn't like that idea, you know, because I like it just fine. I think that's all it really needs to be. But if somebody rejects that idea and they want it to be something scientific, then, well, look, then it can just be something extra dimensional and the verses still work fine. So again, it's just a different interpretation. We might have a similar thing with the dry land appearing from beyond. Genesis 1:9 says, "And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so." Now that word appear, as used in this verse, comes from the Hebrew word ra'ah, and it seems to give a distinction of something that's already existing, yet is now able to be seen or perceived. And a really good source for this kind of stuff is blueletterbible.com. Absolutely love it. You can look at the Strong's Concordance and actually, but we can compare it with Genesis 12:7. It says, "And the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, unto thy seed I will give this land," you know, so on and so forth. It doesn't mean that at that moment the Lord was created and he came into existence and he didn't exist before.
Right.
You know, and it's that same word. He appeared. He existed before, but now Abram can see him. He appeared. So appeared doesn't have to mean that this is when it was created. It could have been created earlier, and this is just when it appeared. You know, so we could have something like that. So we can look at the flat land, earth idea again. Same idea with the water, you know, but let's say now we're putting dirt and stuff, you know, we're putting land on the flat land earth or whatever. We're putting land on there. Well, it exists, you know, it exists before the flatlanders can see it.
Right.
And if we put it on there to a flatlander, it's just appearing.
Oh, wow,
you know,
yeah.
if
like, oh, look, magic.
Yeah, it would just come into existence. So we might have something like that. And this is really cool. This brings us to the circle and the footstool. So what's the circle of the earth? Because this is something that's been hotly debated too. You know, is it the equator? Is it the orbit of the earth? Is it the earth itself? So Isaiah 40:22 says, "It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in." So the idea of it being stretched out, you know, we could think of the flatland earth again. The third dimension to them would be stretched out all over the place, you know. So it could have something to do with that. But we learn that there's something that God sits upon called the circle of the earth. This is where God is sitting. Now this is something that God is sitting upon, you know, in some fashion. So the circle of the earth is not something purely physical. It can't be. It can't be something where, you know, if the circle of the earth is somehow the earth itself or a piece of the earth itself in physical reality, and God's sitting on that, well, God's not just a three-dimensional, you know, he can take that form, but he's not, by his nature, he's not merely three-dimensional. And because some people have said, you know, well, if the earth is whipping around, you know, how can God sit, how can the earth be God's footstool if the earth is moving and, you know, doing all this stuff? It's like, well, that's like taking it really hyper literally, you know. God's not like a three-dimensional being literally resting his feet, you know, and then trying to keep up with the earth, and, you know, it's not like like that. But so think about this: if the circle of the earth is something extra dimensional, then this starts to make a lot of sense. Psalm 8 actually kind of gives us a clue here. Psalm 8:24 through 27 says, "When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no fountains abounding with water, before the mountains were settled, before the hills, I was brought forth. While as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he set a compass upon the face of the depth." So this whole idea of the compass on the face of the depth. Now, based on that, based on the same Hebrew word used, there for face of the depth. It's the same as face of the deep from Genesis 1:2.
Yeah.
And also compass in that passage is the same Hebrew word for circle in Isaiah 40:22. So this is why it can't just be a part of the earth somewhere, because in that passage it said that the earth wasn't created yet.
Right. Yeah.
Before there was an earth,
Yes.
there was this compass thing, there was this circle, there was this, you know, so what does that mean? And it says while, and it talks about heaven, when he prepared the heavens.
Yes.
So when he was doing whatever he was doing on a spiritual level in extra dimensional space, and he was creating all that stuff, that was when this circle thing was, you know, was created. And then he set the compass upon the face of the depth. And again, we talked about what the deep is, that it's like this abyss thing that seems to be an extra dimensional space.
Yeah.
So the circle can't be something just physical, and that's why we're not talking about a literal thing that God's sitting on. The way that I kind of look at this is, you know, imagine the flatland earth again. We're going to be going back to that a lot. And let's say, you know, you have the flatland earth. Let's say I put something like a throne or something right in the middle, you know, or a pile of dirt or a mountain. I make my own holy mountain right there in the middle, reaching up into the third dimension. Flatlanders can't see that.
Nope.
They could even dig into their own earth, and they're not ever going to get to what I created because they have no up or down.
That's right.
So they would have no interaction with it. Now, I could have created that earlier, and then after I did the flatland earth thing, I could have set it down on there. I think that this is what it's saying. It
makes sense because we can't perceive Anna or Kata.
Right.
In our
the
dimension,
two extra dimensions
to make up the fourth dimension.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. The Flatlanders can't see the third dimension. We can't see the fourth dimension. We can experience certain aspects of the fourth dimension, but we cannot perceive in our mind what Anna or Kata, the two extra dimensions, even look like.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I hate to cut this short. It doesn't seem like it is cutting it short because it's a full episode, but, you know, these things go by so fast for us. But we are all out of time. I want to thank you all for joining us yet again into the multiverse. Until next time, take care and God bless.